Welcome back. I'm Jen. I'm a holistic family consultant and a parent coach, and I work with queer, non-monogamous, and neurodivergent families through the challenges of parenting outside the box. And I'm here with Jacob today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jacob Englesman. I am a international board certified lactation consultant, and I've trained as a postpartum and birth doula, and I am the author of Lactation for the Rest of Us, a guide for queer and trans parents and helpers, as well as several articles about lactation support in queer and non-monogamous families.
Thanks for being here. And
Thank you
in
so
this
much.
video, we're going to talk about lactation and postpartum support within polyamorous or ethically non-monogamous families. And I just want to call it, there's a lot of overlap among queer, trans, and polyamorous families. And so we're not going to talk a lot about things like inducing lactation or alternative feeding or those kinds of things, but Jacob's book does. So if you, especially if you are queer or trans, or you want to learn more about lactation, as a science, what happens in a body, Jacob's book is a fantastic resource. So I definitely suggest reading that thoroughly. But we're going to specifically talk about things that come up when there is a non-monogamous family and there are maybe multiple partners supporting a lactating parent. So do you want to maybe start with, are there things that you think are most important for someone to know if they're going to be a supportive person to someone who's lactating?
Yeah, so the thing there is so much to know, right? Like once you get into down the lactation rabbit hole, there's so much. So it becomes a question of like what is relevant to your average family, right? Like you probably don't need to know about galactosemia and ankyloglossia and all of these things. Um, so I think the most important things that that you can do to support your your spouse or your partner who is who is to be very clear, like just given birth and now has a baby that they're feeding, that the most important things you can do to help that situation are a just read everything your partner asks you to read. You don't, and this might just be coming from like a very specific relationship dynamic that may not apply to everybody. You might have your partner might be the one who's like, I need you to find the books that need reading. I need you to separate out the stuff that's relevant to us and the stuff that's not. But in my experience, a lot of the time, the pregnant person is the one who's like spearheading finding the books to read, figuring out what's relevant to them. So then when whatever books that they're reading, like read the same book is my point. Don't go finding your own books to read because you both want to be on the same page. And I feel like this might be controversial to say in some circles, but I'm just going to say it. It largely doesn't matter which books get read, right? As long as you're reading books about birth, about infant care, as long as everybody's reading the same ones and you're not getting conflicting information. Like I tell people a lot, it's really hard to screw up a baby.
Yeah, I will say the caveat to that because I work with a lot of perinatal, pre and perinatal psychology circles
Mm-hmm.
and work with parents of very young kids when they've read a book and the baby's not doing what the book says.
Mm.
and they start to feel like either there's something wrong with their baby or there's something wrong with them. So if you're
Mm.
reading books that are making you feel like a failure, read different books.
Oh yeah.
Whatever book it doesn't matter, like philosophically, just if it's not working for your baby or if it's making you feel like a shit parent, then read a
Hmm.
different book, pick something else. Maybe you'll find something that is more affirming.
Right, right. Because like I could, we could have a whole conversation about Le Leche League and the Womanly Art of Breastfeeding, their book. But at the end of the day, the information in that book is good, valuable information. So even if you don't feel super comfortable reading a book called The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding, if that's what your spouse is reading and that's where they're getting their information from, just read that book. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, and then I was going to segue off of books. So if you still have a book thing,
Nope, that's I was also gonna segue. So
and then I feel like the other important thing, especially as a polyamorous family, is to find professional support people who are going to be cool, right? So when I introduced myself, I said I'm an international board certified lactation consultant. You see that a lot tagged as an IBCLC. You'll also see people who, if you need lactation support, they refer to themselves as like a CLC or like a lactation counselor. Those don't make a huge amount of difference, but find the local lactation consultants, call them, and ask them how they feel about polyamorous families. Because you're probably not going to need one, but at some point, you might, and it might be very sudden, right? The baby
yes.
hasn't latched for 12 hours and no one knows why. You're going to want to have a lactation professional you can call who's not going to be rude about your family structure.
Yes. And ideally do that research while you're pregnant, because if you're crying and the baby's crying and it's 2 o'clock in the morning is not the time that you want to have to be screening people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
ideally.
have that. Well, and if you're not comfortable calling people and asking about it, right? Like if you have a local polyamorous community, somebody knows who the cool lactation consultant is.
Yes. And if you are that lactation consultant, especially if you're in the Denver area, get in touch with me because, like I said in the birth video, I would love to be able to know who those people are and send people to them. Uh, yeah. So I'm curious because one of the things, because I know you have a whole chapter in your book about being a supporting parent and all of the ways that you can support your partner. And there's lots of good information. La Leche League also has information about that. And so if you are, one of the things that I think comes up in polyamorous families that doesn't in monogamous families is if you have partners who are not like living in the home, they're not going to be the one getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to like help with baby care. Um, but they might want to still be involved or at least still feel connected to the person who's just given birth. Or, they might be a partner of a nesting partner, and want to still feel connected. So do you have thoughts about how someone who is not like living there could be supportive and could nurture, the relationship with the adult that they're close with, without it putting someone in a position where it's like, can't you just stop parenting and come pay attention to me? Which is what we really don't want to do. We don't want to put a person who's just given birth, who's trying to feed a baby, in a position of feeling like they need to, hand off the baby so they can pay attention to you. That is not
Mm-hmm.
the position you ever want to put somebody in. So don't do that. But what could you do instead if you're like, I'd really like to see you. I'd really like to be supportive of you. I'd really like to feel close with you. How can I do that in a way that also supports what you're dealing with right now?
Yeah. So right. So first of all, yes, accepting that your relationship is going to change, and for those first few months or possibly year, the relationship is going to be dramatically different. And, as long as everybody wants to, get back to a sense of normalcy, then that can eventually happen. But right, for the first little while, it's going to be dramatically different. So once you have accepted that and made that a part of your emotions, then in terms of like practical things, making food, like cooking, that's because
And cleaning.
yes, right, like being willing to come over, clean, not have like any fun, right? Like maybe watch a movie, maybe, or like hang out, but most like come over and clean while they're asleep, right? Except that this is not a hanging out thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is not chatting while folding laundry, right? Like you are coming, you are cleaning. But then also yeah, cooking frozen, food and then freezing it and bringing it over so that they can have it later are, yeah, I feel like those are really the big things that people aren't, a lot of people talk a big game about being willing to help out in those regards. But a lot of times when push comes to shove, they don't really want to come hang out and clean up while the person that you want to see is asleep, you
Or
know?
taking a shower or going
Right,
to the bathroom by themselves.
right. And also you might not actually get to see the cute new baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you just need to accept that.
Yeah. And all of that, for the record, is good advice for anyone coming to visit a baby. Even if, you don't have to be a partner. You
Oh,
can be,
right.
a relative or a friend or a neighbor. If you are coming over to visit someone who has recently given birth, bring food, clean, the same those same things apply.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of specifically polyamorous partners is one thing is depending on the relationship between all of the partners and between metamors, if someone who doesn't live there can like come over and give a parent who does live there but has other partners like maybe an opportunity to go out for a couple of hours and get a cup of
Oh yeah.
coffee with one of their other partners, while you stay and do all of the like cleaning, cooking, holding the baby while somebody showers, all of those kinds of duties for a
Hmm.
while, and have some time with your partner, and also give someone else an opportunity to have a break, whether or not they're going to see another partner with that break, but just to have a break is
Yeah.
great, because it is a full-time job to be doing a good job of supporting the person who just gave birth.
Hmm.
And then the other thing that I can imagine being different from like if a friend comes over and is being helpful is like, if I've just given birth and I might feel physically not amazing. That's a common experience that people have. But I still probably want my partner to think that I'm sexy and gorgeous and amazing. And I don't necessarily care if a friend comes over and like thinks I look like a hot mess. But if
Right.
my partner comes over, I maybe would really like them to like tell me I'm glowing, offer to give me a foot massage or a shoulder massage or something like that, where there's like a reassurance that you still like them and that the fact that you are unavailable to them in the ways you were before right now does not make you less loved and desired and cared for by this
Hmm.
person.
And it's interesting having this conversation because basically everything we're talking about applies to pretty much every family, right? So little of it. There's so little that is exclusive information exclusive for polyamorous families, right? Like every family is in the same situation. So I bring that up because I think there can be a lot of overthinking and people feeling like feelings of isolation, right? That like, oh, other people don't get what I'm going through because we're polyamorous or non-monogamous. But but everybody whose partner gives birth, regardless of how many partners they have, right? Everybody whose partner gives birth is going to feel at some point a sense of rejection, like that, for example. So yeah, I think that we can uh, we can make it feel more isolating than it is when having a newborn is already a pretty isolating experience.
Yeah, and one of the things that I see sometimes, so there will be a link in the description for this, but I have a free group for polyamorous parents, and one of the things that I see there sometimes is like somebody is if somebody is having a purely like lactation question or something, then they have no problem going to their local lactation group or website or whatever and asking their question, the same as any other parent. But if they're having some kind of challenge about like two of their partners are in conflict about some aspect of parenting or something that has to do with the fact that there are more than two adults involved,
Mm-hmm.
then they feel like they can't share that in a parenting space because no one will give them help with the parenting or the baby care. Everybody will get caught up in the how many adults are there,
Oh,
and that will
that just
sidetrack
keeps
the
coming back.
conversation. And so also just offering that as a resource that you can come to that parent group and and even if we might not be able to answer your like technical chest feeding questions, but
Mm-hmm.
we can talk to you about your experience without like pathologizing the number of partners you have. and
Right,
and
right.
you don't need to
That's
be
not the
isolated.
most important thing.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Jacob. Are there any last words of wisdom that you want to give people who are supporting a newly lactating parent?
the and again, this applies to multiple situations. I say this a lot, and I always have. The first step to being helpful is saying, how can I be helpful?
Yes. Yes.
Don't just decide what helpful thing you are going to do.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And if you are the person who is contemplating having children or recently had a child and somebody is wanting to be helpful, please let them. This is not the time to be like, no, it's shameful if somebody else does my dishes. Please let them be helpful. Please let them
Mm-hmm.
clean. Please let them bring you food. Yeah.
Yes,
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And one more time for everyone, get Jacob's book because it is, I mean, I have read a lot of birth and lactation books. I was a breastfeeding peer counselor for a period of time, and Jacob's book is very thorough and also very inclusive, and it's a wonderful resource.
Thank you so much.